in News, Finfine News Network, and I am your host, Cybele. Today, we have two very special guests on the program for a discussion. Professor Asafa Jalata is a professor of sociology, global studies, and Africana studies at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. His works include Aroma and Ethiopia, state formation and ethno-national conflict, contending nationalisms of Aroma and Ethiopia, struggling for statehood sovereignty and multinational democracy, and most recently, the Oromo movement and imperial politics, ideology and culture in Oromia and Ethiopia. Dr. Asfa Beyene is a professor of mechanical engineering at San Diego State University. His research has focused on renewable energy systems, thermodynamic cycles, and mathematical modeling. His paper won the American Society of Mechanical Engineers Best Paper Award, and both professors have sat on the board of directors of the Oromo Studies Association. Welcome, Professor Asfa and Professor Asafa.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And firstly, I wanted to ask both of you about Prime Minister Abiy's recent release of several well-known Oromo political prisoners. As FNN recently covered, those include Jawar Mohammed, Bekele Gerba, and Dejane Tafa, as well as some of the senior members of the TPLF. However, many prisoners still remain jailed. That, of course, includes Dawood Ibsa, the OLF chairperson who's under house arrest, as well as Colonel Gamachu Ayana. So I'm wondering, what do you think was behind this recent decision to release the prisoners, and what does it show about the current state of the conflict? And then why does the Prosperity Party still keep these OLF leaders whose charges have been dropped by the court in jail? Let's start with Professor Asafa.
It's a very interesting question. Thank you. This regime is totally against the Oromo people. It is true that it released a few people from one organization, but it refused to release, in fact, two organizations from TPLF and OFC, but it refused to release prominent leaders of the Oromo Liberation Front. It's very amazing that it releases senior politicians of TPLF that has been fighting, almost destroyed the Abiy regime, but still keeps the leaders of the Oromo Liberation Front in jail. In fact, these leaders agreed to peacefully struggle and promote democracy. First of all, it denies them access to democracy. It jails them without them committing any crime, and it still tries to keep the Oromo leaders in prison. This shows two important things. One is the regime is totally against the Oromo people and its leaders. Second, it fears very seriously the Oromo leadership, because if the Oromo leadership competes with this regime, they are going to automatically win, because almost all Oromos support Dawood Ibsa and other leaders, Colonel Gamachu and many other leaders, as genuine representative of the Oromo people, because they have been fighting for many years to enable the Oromo people to achieve statehood and national self-determination. So it's very amazing that even the world doesn't pay attention to the Oromo cause and the Oromo leadership. It just keep quiet when it comes to the Tigrayans, in fact, which represent only 5% of the population in the Ethiopian Empire. They make a lot of noise when it comes to the Oromo people that represent that the largest national group in the Ethiopian Empire. They say nothing, and all the Naptanyas are supported from the regime. These are extremist groups who try to undermine the Oromo struggle. They gang up together with Abiy to to suppress the Oromo national movement. It's not only that the regime is killing many prominent leaders, assassinating them, killing them, burning the house of innocent people. It's committing serious crimes against humanity. As far as I'm concerned, the Abiy regime is a terrorist regime and a genocidal regime that doesn't promote any rights of people.
Professor Asfaw?
Well, I think the reaction is that of a shocked system. Abiy's government was shocked when the TDF approached Debre Birhan, very close to Finfinne, Addis Ababa. That is one. So at that time, many of us have seen members of Abiy's cabinet in a meeting. We saw their facial expression, the hopelessness. So I think they were shocked, and the reaction is such that they wanted to make some deal with TDF. And initially, this was also assisted, in my opinion, by the international pressure, especially from the United States, which probably gave some personal threats to Abiy himself and a few of his cabinets. So these two issues combined, the shock, the initial hopelessness, although it was later on reverted with some military success from the central government, but the TDF remained a very serious threat, especially if the drones are not going to continue. The ground war has been defeated. Abiy has been defeated already. So if it weren't for the drones, which I think is also are very temporary, they know the TDF can revive and pose a very similar threat to the capital city. So these two issues, the national pressure and the threat of the Tigrayan forces, put some idea in Abiy's mind. Why don't we release the senior officials of TDF, who are very influential members, who are practically considered as godfathers, Boisivat, etc. Why don't we release them and use them to negotiate with TDF? And that, I think, if they are going to release the Tigran seniors, then it behooves to also release some senior politicians of the Oromo, because it would be terrible from a political image point of view. So the Jars and Bakale's release, I think, was not genuine. It was forced by the release of the Tigrayan seniors. And why is the system keeping the OLF leaders? It's very simple. The OLF poses the greatest danger to the establishment of the government of Ethiopia, and they will keep them until they are forced to release them by some power that has to come from Oromo Center. So I think they will, in fact, arrest more, kill more, to discourage, and that's why the Oromo reaction, has to be firm and consistent until we get the attention we deserve.
Mm-hmm. Professor Asfaw, you mentioned U.S. involvement in this conflict, and this comes as it was announced this week that 2 U.S. diplomats, David Satterfield, who is the new U.S. envoy to the Horn of Africa, and Assistant Secretary Molly Fee, are in Ethiopia, in Finfinne, and attempt to negotiate an end to the airstrikes and the release of political prisoners. So do you think these kinds of negotiations that are being, pushed by the U.S. are going to have any kind of positive impact on the conflict or not, Professor Asafa?
Yeah, the reason why the Abiy government start to listen is that money is depleting. The United States has influence on International Monetary Fund and the World Bank and the Western countries. So unless Abiy gets the money, the empire is in a total economic collapse. So the regime is almost going to die. So he's trying to listen to the United States and to negotiate. But I'm not sure whether this regime is going to be genuinely negotiate in order to bring peaceful settlement. It is trying to make some kind of breathing space so that it can get money from the West, it can rebuild its army, it can continue to buy ammunition, drones and airplanes from outside world, and continue to the war because the regime doesn't believe in international law. It's already a terrorist. It is a criminal government. It knows that if there is democracy, it's going to be responsible for the crimes it has been committing for 3 years. So I don't know. I'm not sure the regime is going to go to the extent that the United States wants this, to make peace and make democratic transition. It has the regime is a manufacturer of lies and propaganda. It's going to continue the same thing. So this regime is a very criminal regime that always lies, manipulates situations to get away from the crimes it has committed. And it's going to, it doesn't want to be accountable in the international criminal court by trying to do some small things that the United States wants. It wants to get out of those criminal responsibilities that it's going to be required, that the world is going to require it to satisfy.
Mm-hmm. Professor Asfaw, what do you think about U.S. influence here?
I think the U.S. policy is a sort of one at a time. Of course, there was a huge humanitarian abuse in the north. So the focus, not only of that of the US, but also Europe and most of the world, is to create some sort of negotiated peace between TDF, TPLF, and Abiy's government. As you can imagine, this is not comprehensive enough to solve the problem. The US policy does not involve, at least rhetorically, all the major political forces of the country that can bring a fundamental and comprehensive solution to this complex problem that we know Ethiopia is facing. So this one at a time policy go and resolve the northern policy, while we know there is fire elsewhere, but this fire is the biggest fire, as they say it, and we put that fire, and then we will see where the next big fire is burning, and then we'll put off that fire, and then the next and the next. This is practically a Western policy. That has been how it was forever. What Ethiopia needs is a comprehensive solution. Whether it is going to be a united one country or separate peacefully, that has to be negotiated, discussed, because it is going to happen with blood. Why bring a change that can come without blood? Why invest all this blood and resources? And why kill time? And a peaceful resolution, I think, was long overdue, and most of the Western policy is not for a comprehensive solution, mainly because they think Abiy's resistance in handling of this issue is strong enough when it is not, it is rotten. The system is rotten and is going to crumble, likely all of a sudden. So we know that. Those of us who follow the situation in the country follow that. But the US policy, the Western policy, thinks that by putting off this one fire, they can postpone the other problems for long enough for itself to resolve, randomly, without harsh interventions, political or otherwise. That's, I think, what is going on. And once they notice that this thing is crashing from all angles, they will understand a comprehensive solution is the only viable solution. But it may be too late for that. We don't know.
One of those solutions that the Biden administration has tried recently, or an action that they've taken that FNN News previously reported on, was removing Ethiopia from the African Growth and Opportunity Act. However, in light of the economic conditions right now in Ethiopia, with inflation climbing now to over 25%, will this have a really hugely adverse effect on the Ethiopian economy? Could this really be very damaging, actually, Professor Asafa?
Yes, it's going to be very damaging because Ethiopia has been gaining a lot by trading with the United States without paying tariffs. And when this kind of policies implemented, I don't know when they are going to implement. The United States gives a lot of lip service. It says it's going to stop, but up to now, we don't know when it's going to implement it. If it's going to implement, the declining Ethiopian economy is going to collapse. It has going to go to have very serious consequences on the government. The people are poor. I don't know how they are surviving. They don't get enough food. They don't get health service. They don't get other important service from the government. That government is not playing its role as a government, as other governments play, protecting citizens, providing health care, providing education, providing other things. So whenever people demand something, it's going to kill them, terrorize them, and the people scared and they are going to be kept quiet. So I don't know how long that's going to stay. There will be a time when people are going to say enough is enough. We are enough with this regime, and whatever price we pay, we are going to take care of this government. The time is going to come soon, and this economic policy is going to contribute to that important important rebellions in the country. It's going to destroy the economy. It's going to create a conducive conditions that will agitate people to rebel.
Mm-hmm. Professor Asfaw, what do you think about the economic implications of this policy?
Millions of people are starving. And the prospect for this, even with international humanitarian aid, is that Ethiopia will starve for the foreseeable future. It cannot feed itself, even in normal situations. To the lack of infrastructure and lack of attention for decades, now you add changes in the environment that are shaking even the rich countries, and add the number of unemployment, which must be 30-40%. And then you bring this artificial war where the young is not working, but is being taken to fight, which means it becomes a consumer of something that is not produced. And where do you think a country with this type of leadership? Now, remember, a lot of the farmers are now participating in the war. They are supposed to farm. And the time for plowing the ground, preparing the earth has already passed in many, many cases. And then this war is also devastating some of the farmlands. They are burning farms. We have seen the videos of crushed crops. So now you talk about Growth and Opportunity Act. I mean, not you personally, but we talk about Growth and Opportunity Act that may add a penny for the central government to pay its administrators. How does that percolate down to the hungry people? It doesn't. So the disaster is imminent. It already is a disaster, but more disaster is imminent. And one needs to take this situation very seriously and start implementing some sort of comprehensive solution with the implementation of something that many other countries, including South Africa, with its Truth and Reconciliation project went through. Something like that is being called in Ethiopia. The situation demands it.
Mm-hmm. FNN has also reported in recent weeks on the withdrawal of TPLF troops back to Tigray, even as Prime Minister Abiy continues airstrikes. And now, recently, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres came out just a couple days ago praising what he said was a demonstrable effort to make peace. So what's your reaction to that? Is this really a peacemaking effort, or is the conflict just shifting to another area, Professor Asafa?
Many international figures, I don't know whether they exactly know what is going on the ground, or they are talking about their wishful thinking. It doesn't reflect what is going on the ground. On the ground, war has been going on. It doesn't matter whether the war is in Amara, some part of Amara region, or whether it diverts to another place. The war is going on. The only reason why the Abiy government is claiming to be victorious is that because it has got drone. Drone is terrorizing people. Another thing is it is starving the Tigrayan people. The Tigrayans are caught by two major problems. One, they don't have drones. Another one, the people are dying of starvation. They don't have access to food. They don't have access to water. They don't have access to medicine. So they are maneuvering to get their people get all these basic necessities to survive. In doing that, they can shift their activities from one place to another place. But at the end of the day, they want to survive. And survival strategies require them to take whatever is necessary to fight against their enemy. So the Abiy regime is a brutal and is a very criminal regime. It wants to use famine, it wants to use different policy strategies to destroy the Tigrayan people by claiming that it wants to destroy the TPLF. So I think people are rearranging their activities. The TPLF, PDF is rearranging its strategies and policies depending upon available opportunities for them. But the war is still going on. It's still going on. Probably the reason why they left, they are not going to continue to move to Philippines. That one, they don't have supporters from Oromia and other places, despite the fact that it's allied with Oromo Liberation Army, because this regime is also a criminal regime. It was killing, murdering people. And second, it is this regime that brought Abiy to power. So people know what these people are doing. So they are paying a lot of price for mistakes they made before. Now they are fighting to survive. When people are fighting to survive, they are not going to hesitate whatever is necessary to take action. So, despite the fact that the Amara extremists are running around claiming victory, and the TPLF and TDF is a very strong power. It can annihilate, it can destroy the Fanos, and they destroy the federal government army. Uh, so they are try to respond to Western demands so that there will be peace and reconciliation. But at the same time, they know, the Abiy regime also knows that this peaceful reconciliation is not going to take place. There is no way that after all these things, this is going to be settled easily.
Professor Asfaw, what's your reaction to the TPLF's withdrawal and that statement from the UN Secretary General?
Well, the Secretary General is trying to give cookies to the Prime Minister by way of encouraging him to make a peace deal. But the congratulation or the praise of Abiy is from the international community is not a real reward for his goodwill. The military retreat of TPLF and the decision not to march to Tigray, these are all military decisions, not political decisions. By military decisions, I mean both sides calculated the risk and took a military decision for the least cost with the maximum gain. Right now, Abiy thinks if he marches to TPLF, the wave may reverse against him, and including the international pressure, of course, and with more humanitarian problems. And that wave this time may really follow him back right into Finfinne, Addis Ababa. So the decision being military, but the international community must give cookies for these measures, pretend they are political and they are good gestures. We know that, and they know that too, by the way. So these cookies are not long-term because, as my colleague, Professor Asafa mentioned, the war is going on in whom, by the way, fundamental problems that started the war remain on the ground. The major one being how to resolve the Humara area, which until some years ago was under TPLF. Now it is taken back by the Amhara regional government. And how are they going to resolve that? That's just one of the many issues that need to be resolved. Now, this is the situation in the north for which cookies are thrown, but they don't mean anything. Now, the problem again is not only in the north. As we speak, the Oromo Liberation Army is closing to all the major cities in Oromia. The western road from Ambo all the way until Asosa is practically closed. Imagine one of the 5 routes that come to Finfinne is closed for months now. And on the south, most of the region is controlled by OLA, Oromo Liberation Army. And OLA is gaining ground in the east. So although for some media weakness of our own, our success is not being told on a daily basis. But in my opinion, the military shakeup that Abiy is facing from the south, from Ola, is no more less than that from TDF. And I think the coming weeks and months will demonstrate that Ethiopia may not be governable at all. That's why I mentioned the acute problems that need to be addressed in a comprehensive manner before things are too late. So, recapping, the praise is it's a good gesture, etc. There was no gesture there. It was a military decision.
Mm-hmm. A recent press release that we covered here on FNN from the OLA has claimed that Eritrean troops have re-entered Oromia, and it also said that currently the war is being advanced by both Amhara extremists and Eritrean President Isaias Afwerki. So I wanted to ask, what do they gain from this war? And also, what has been the influence of Eritrean troops going back during this war and historically, Professor Asafa?
It's a very interesting question. The Eritrean government is a mercenary government. It sells its soldiers to Abiy. He extracts a lot of millions of dollars and other favors for sending his army. Obviously, it is very secret. They don't release the information. Probably the Abiy pays thousands of dollars for one soldier, whether he or she dies in Oromia. So the Eritrean government is a very impoverished government. It doesn't have any international relations. It doesn't have economic base. Unfortunately, it is trading with human lives. And I heard that even they were killing people and selling organs. This is a very criminal regime. So it's very unfortunate that the Eritrean people that have fight for almost 25 years to liberate itself ended up in this criminal hand. This guy has no humanity. He doesn't care about his people. He doesn't care about Abiy. Isaiah doesn't care about anybody. He's just concerned with money, with power. Therefore, one, he is trading his people. Second one, he wants to change the direction of Ethiopia. He wants to remold Ethiopia by agreeing with Abiy in a unitary system in which Abiy is going to be subordinated with Isaias, where he can control Ethiopia. He tried that with Mallas. Finally, it didn't work. It turned against him. He paid a lot of price. Now he's trying to do again the same thing by collaborating with Amara and with the Naftanyas, with Abiy. He's trying to control the Oromo. All these things is tantamount to control Oromia, control Oromia resources, control Oromo land, to extract the surplus. It's for money. The Naftanyas are fighting against Oromo for money, to take the Oromo land, to control Oromia, to extract the surplus of Oromo. All of these forces are ganging against the Oromo and Oromia to loot its rich economic resources. It's a very sad that the Oromo people are quiet when all these conspiracies are going against them, when they are, where different forces coming together. In fact, I suspect that the Somali forces are there also. Abiy has been using the Somali force in Hararge to uproot the Oromo so that he was giving Oromo land to Somalis so that they can rise in the fight against the Oromo people and against Oromo Liberation Army in Somalia. Also in the southern Oromia, it is mobilizing the Somali militias and Somali army against the Oromo in Borana and Guji so that Abiy would give them land and those people fight against the Oromo and terrorize Oromos. So everybody is ganging up against Oromo to totally curtail the Oromo rights, to destroy the federalism, this fake federalism. There is no genuine federalism. They want even to destroy fake federalism. They are now attacking Oromo symbols everywhere. And all of these are orchestrated to continue to dominate, to exploit, to dehumanize the Oromo people.
Mm-hmm. Professor Asfaw, what do you think about Eritrea's role in this conflict?
I think that's a very intriguing question because, from the outset, for a normal thinking person and under normal political conditions, one would assume the peace in Ethiopia helps Eritrea. Ethiopia will get a sea exit, and Eritrea will only benefit from a peaceful neighbor. Unfortunately, we don't know why Eritrean officials or Eritrean president doesn't want this normal situation, normal assumption. By the way, it is my firm conviction that Eritrea leaders, Isaias is either alone or with very few people on this policy. Most Eritrean scholars we discuss with agree with us that Eritrea's policy is wrong. So why does Isaias interfere and side, not only interfere, by the way, go on the wrong side? Why? That has been perplexing. It has wondered a lot of people. In my opinion, I think with Tigray, they have revenge on their mind. I think there is some vendetta there because of the previous war. There is some, hatred. But with Oromia, they hosted the OLF. Not big, but they provided modest support for many years, for which Oromos thanked them. Now, when Oromos got strong, and we are ready to pay back, in fact, their contribution, they stood against Oromo struggle. Why? Why is this happening? It's a big topic. Our sociologists hopefully will investigate one day, and they will bring it out. But if, as one person, you want me to speculate, here is what I think is happening in the mind of somebody, and of course, I'm taking a risk when trying to read the mind of somebody, especially of President's caliber of Eritrea. I think he wants to create chaos in Ethiopia. In that chaos, relatively calms his people. Look what Ethiopia is going through. That comparative analysis, the chaotic Ethiopia, by the way, they have justified this in some of their speeches. They said, you see, this is what we have been doing for the last 30 years. We have been creating a lasting peace, and we have a lasting peace. Look what Ethiopia is going through. We don't want to go through that. So the chaos in Ethiopia justifies poverty in Eritrea. And I think that is the political end game that Isaias is pursuing, economic ambitions or economic gains of some sort, as my colleague mentioned, notwithstanding. I think that is also in the picture, if possible. But keeping Ethiopia in chaos, I think, is the main political gain that Isaias and his colleagues are banking on. By the way, with Eritreans, we have a long relationship and discussion and communication. And when I say the people are objected to this policy, the rank and file and many of their scholars are against this policy. That one is not a speculation. That is my personal experience. Thank you.
So, with all this being said, what do you see as the main objective of the Oromo liberation movement now? Is there a chance that a new national political regime could arise that would be more inclusive of Oromo people? And what is the future of this war, Professor Asafa?
Yeah, there are many people who have been speculating that a democratic transition will take place. Abiy is committed for national dialogue to solve long-standing contradictions. Personally, I don't think that is true. If you know the political economy of the Ethiopian empire, there is no peace, there is no democracy. Ethiopia is an empire of war, empire of ignorance, empire of poverty, and the successive Ethiopian government benefits from that. So Abiy is not the same. Abiy is not different. He already said that Ethiopia was glorious. The leaders, dead leaders, were very important leaders. He would emulate them to rebuild a united and prosperous Ethiopia. So for the Oromo people, the objective of the Oromo people is very clear. The objective of the Oromo Liberation Army, the Oromo OLF, has been very clear: to liberate Oromia from Ethiopian settler colonialism. It is Naftanya system. As far as the Naftanya system continues to survive, the Oromos are going to bleed. They are going to be exploited. They are going to be kept in poverty, ignorance, and darkness. So Ola is saying that it's going to liberate the Oromo people in order to create a democratic Oromia state, free of colonialism, free of colonial structures, including the Ethiopian state. Of course, that doesn't mean that Oromos are the Oromo Liberation Front or Ola are not going to work with other people. There are many other oppressed and colonized peoples, particularly in the southern and northern people like Imant, Agao, Sidama, Walaita, Kambata, and many others who are interested to create a confederated government or a federal system. So if Ola might be willing to create a confederated or a federal system with other oppressed people who are interested to create a genuine democratic society. So I don't think the Oromo question, the idea of that the Oromo question is going to be resolved by reconciliation within the Ethiopian system is a dead thing. There are still Oromo elites who are trying to get a shortcut to that, and many of them are end up destroyed. Many Oromo elites who have tried that path have been destroyed, and the same thing is true also with Oromo nationalists. They fought for liberating the Oromia and liberating Oromo society. They have been killed also, but that is the only way. The Oromos are gaining something because they are advancing Oromo nationalism that is empowering the society, that is raising the consciousness of the society, raising their unity, so that they are going to liberate themselves once and for all. And all colonized people would be free by liberating themselves from colonialism. That's the same thing with Oromo.
Mm-hmm. Professor Asfaw, what do you see as being the ultimate end of this?
I think Ola has to be strong enough to establish peace and self-rule in Oromia. That's the first step we need to accomplish. As a second step, Oromia has to establish its own government with full participation of the major forces, namely Oromo Federalist Congress, Oromo Liberation Front, and Oromo Liberation Army. These three must agree on the establishment of the government of Ethiopia, a transitional version of which has already been initiated. Then Oromos can decide the format of their constitution, whether they want to continue within Ethiopia proper, or within they want independence, or whether they want to create some sort of federation, confederation. The government, once the independence, the self-rule of Oromia is established and is out of the influence of these perpetual enemies, then Oromos can decide. Now, my apologies. The reconciliation, the national dialogue is this one that I'm envisioning, which comes with OFC, OLF, and OLA in the driver's seat, not the one that Abiy is cooking for us while keeping the leaders in prison. I don't consider that as a dialogue or as a comprehensive solution. The comprehensive solution has to come after Oromo voice is established and its self-rule is assured. Only then people can voice their free will. What free will do we have now? There is no free will. If you speak your free will, you'll either be jailed or killed. So the expectation, I don't think it is, in fact, my expectation. I don't see any other option, honestly. I see that being the only route that's available to us based on past experiences in decades and decades of abuses that we are facing. And then even in 2022 to 2021, the obvious, something we have been discussing for 3 continuous years and begging, is completely ignored. And the Bagadas of Karayu is a sacred institution that is being massacred. What else are you waiting for? I mean, what are we waiting for? I am not expecting any handovers or presence from the system. For that reason, it is extremely important that we build our energy, we build our power, and Oromo Liberation Army becomes the defense for the voice of the people. But organizational network, the structure has to be built by the people, not only Oromo Liberation Army, by not only the political parties as such, elders, civic organizations have to be involved, churches and mosques have to be involved. That way, we can truly build an Oromia that belongs to the people who live in it. And we will respect the voices of the people. We will hopefully that they will come, and we will cherish that day.
I have a comment on what the Professor Asfaw said.
Sure.
I don't like the word self-rule. Oromia should be decolonized. The notion of self-rule is looking the Oromo issue within the context of Ethiopia. Ethiopia is a colonial empire Like any colonial empire, Oromia should be decolonized. The idea that we are going to negotiate with Habashas, with the Ethiopian government and get self-rule is totally out. We should say Oromia should achieve its sovereignty. That's the only way. The bleeding of the Oromo, the looting of Oromo resources, the destruction of Abagadas, the destruction of Oromo institutions will stop. We should make it clear that ideological confusion should be eliminated. There are people who believe that there is internal self-determination. The Oromo issue is going to be settled within Ethiopia. These have been tried again and again. Those people who tried that again and again decimated. There is no any reconciliation from the Habasha group, from the Habasha system, and from their government. So my advice for the Oromo Liberation Army is, as they say, they should restore Oromian sovereignty. They should restore Oromo democratic system, which is based on Gada and Sikh system, based on Oromo values, Oromo tradition. That's the only way that the Oromo can get out of it. And the idea that we are going to convince the world, we are going to convince the Ethiopian government, the Ethiopian political parties, it's not working. All of them are against anything Oromo. They don't want to hear the word Oromo. So how long Oromos are going to appeal to these criminals and going to suffer as a consequence from the consequence of this ideological misorientation? Thank you.
Professor Asfaw, do you have a quick response if you wanted to give one just about the idea of Oromo sovereignty? Do you think that would be possible at all?
My colleague, Professor Asafa, is a sociologist. I will leave the semantics versus sovereignty versus self-rule. I have not studied the differences or the literature. I assume they are the same. And if there is a difference, I will take and I'll make the necessary corrections. But I stand firm by the idea that the people, once we establish a sovereign state of Oromia, or Oromia that rules itself, whichever the word applies, then the people have to voice what they want. I'm not at liberty. I'm not ready to say what the transitional government or the government decides on behalf of the people will stand. Hopefully, we can all argue at that time and make the right decision based on such arguments that Professor Asafa just mentioned. So, but I think the decision must be ultimately left to the people, to Oromos, how they want to administer or rule Oromia to be governed. But the semantics, I am oblivious to that for now. I will do the research. Asafa has a home court advantage because he's a sociologist. I'm an engineer, so I'm not going to dispute whether we should pick sovereignty or self-rule. I didn't distinguish that much of a difference so far. I think I made myself clear on that. The rest, I think we are just saying the same thing, but in a different context.
Thank you. And then I'll move on to my very last question here. FNN recently received the very sad news that Oromo musician Nuho Gobana just passed away. So I'm wondering if you are all familiar with Nuho, what you think of his legacy, and then also in light of the huge influence that Hachalu Hundessa has had on the Oromo liberation movement, what is the role of musicians and artists in Oromo political activism? Professor Asafa.
Really, no, I have been affected very seriously, negatively, when I heard this passing away.
Oh.
I have known Nuho for many decades. He has been singing, he has been expressing Oromuma in North America and all over the world. Nuho is an embodiment of Oromuma, national Oromuma. No is an embodiment of Oromo culture. He was an embodiment of Oromo identity. He never he never took a wrong direction from the liberation of the Oromo, from the sovereignty of Oromia. He always encouraged people to embrace themselves, their identity, their ideology, and it's very disheartening to hear this kind of a giant artist passing away without seeing the fruit of his labor. He traveled around the world and he expressed Oromuma in a very clear ways. Many artists vacillate. They sometimes go with the liberation, sometimes they go to Ethiopian side. He never did that. It was very clear. And he promoted the ideology of Oromo Liberation Front very clearly and precisely. And he has been a role model for serious artists. He was a practitioner. He was sick for many years, and it's a very saddening. And he died. And I was very negatively affected by his passing away. And you said musicians, artists play a very important role in spreading nationalism. They teach people their identity, their culture. Not all artists, by the way, the genuine ones who are committed for society, for the liberation of their people. They cultivate identity, cultivate history, culture in a very attractive ways, in a very clear way, so that any ordinary people can understand the importance of liberation, the importance of sovereignty, the importance of Gada, the importance of achieving freedom. So artists are really play a very important role. There have been many artists who did that. Achal was one of them, and there are many others that we can list, and we are very proud to have many artists. Unfortunately, some of the artists can be easily cheated to get luxurious lifestyle, to get money, and they can join the Naptanya system. There are many artists who joined the Naptanya system and who shut their mouths and who don't know what they are doing for piece of land, for money, for cars, who betrayed their people. But uh, Nuho was very different from all those stuff, all these things. He never betrayed his people, and we are proud of them. And the day will come when a statue will be erected for him in Oromia, because he was a symbol of freedom.
Mm-hmm. Professor Asfa, your thoughts on the legacy of Nuho Gobana? Oops, I think you're on mute, Professor.
My apologies. No, I knew Nuho. He has come quite a few times to my hometown here, San Diego. We invited him to appear on community events, and I have followed his music. By the way, excellent BB King-like voice, but amazingly, he's one of the few excellent guitarists. I don't know if many people notice that. Nuho played guitar almost like BB King too. I saw him personally on September 15, 2018 at the Maskal Square at the Babai, the day the OLF returned to Finfinne. He was in the square. He was being pushed on a wheelchair. and we were walking, and I noticed that it was him, and he was in a frail situation. I stopped and I talked to him very briefly, and I was impressed that even on that day, with that type of physical condition, he didn't want to miss the situation, the opportunity, and he came. He's an example of artists. His persistency was amazing. I think those are the type of people who gave rise to the Kube artists, those who galvanized the Kube movement in 2014, 15, 16, and 17. Many of them sacrificed greatly and to this pool of great artists. The most recent ones, I would add Kekia, who now we don't know where he is. Apparently, he's safe, but he's suffering also personally for releasing a nationalist song. Of course, at this time, having still Nuho in mind, the generation that he followed him, artists like Yosan Getao, amazing job they are doing. And of course, those who are not only artists, but also combine some activism. I should mention our own North American artist and activist who is doing an excellent job of Bhabtamulamu. So these are people who are reaching millions of people, and Nuho gave the fatherly symbol to this young generation of Oromo artists who are following their trail. And may I then use this opportunity because the artist has really galvanized the Kube movement in the mid 2011, 14, 15, 16, etc. And I think although they are doing a good job, but I think they can escalate their artistic contribution to the Oromo movement now, at least to the level we observed in the 14, 15, 16, 2000s. In fact, now that this struggle has been transformed more into armed struggle, I say their moral support, their encouragement is expected. So I hope they will follow those seniors like Nuho and play a very positive role in the Oromo struggle.
Thank you. And of course, on behalf of FNN, our thoughts and prayers going out to the family and friends of Nuho Gobana. I think that is all the time we have for today. Thank you very much, Professor Asfaw and Professor Asafa, for your appearance on FNN News here today. Once again, thanks to our audience for watching. You are watching FNN News, Finfine News Network, and I am your host, Cybele.